Before you scroll, I need you to sit with this for a moment. Not react, not analyze, just listen. Because something happened in your life recently that most people didn't notice. They saw the surface. They saw the situation. They saw the pressure. But they did not see the shift. You were expected to break. You were expected to explode, to respond emotionally, to return to old habits, to prove everyone right. But you didn't. And that changed everything. There was a version of you that would have reacted immediately. A version that would have defended itself loudly. A version that would have tried to win the argument. A version that would have chased validation. A version that would have needed the last word. But that version stayed silent this time. Not because you were weak, because you were aware. Awareness is dangerous to old patterns. And old patterns were counting on you. Counting on you to stay predictable. Counting on you to stay reactive. Counting on you to stay emotionally controlled by circumstance. But something in you matured, quietly. You didn't post about it. You didn't announce it. You didn't demand recognition. You just chose differently. And when you choose differently under pressure, you disrupt expectations. Pressure reveals level. Most people collapse under it. Some people perform under it. Very few people refine themselves through it. You refined yourself. Think about it. You had every reason to respond the old way. Every reason to send that message. To defend your ego, to react to disrespect, to chase what walked away. But instead, you paused. That pause was growth. You may not realize how powerful that moment was, because growth rarely feels dramatic. It feels subtle. It feels quiet. It feels almost invisible. But invisible discipline is the strongest kind. There were voices around you expecting the old you. They expected your temper, your insecurity, your impulsiveness, your over-explaining, your emotional reaction. And when it didn't show up, silence followed. That silence wasn't confusion, it was shock. Not the kind you celebrate, the kind that shifts dynamics. Because once you stop reacting predictably, you become unpredictable in strength. People can manipulate emotion. They cannot manipulate stability. And you became stable. Not perfect. Stable. That stability wasn't built overnight. It was built through disappointment, through delays, through loneliness, through being misunderstood. Every time you felt overlooked, you learned patience. Every time you felt dismissed, you learned restraint. Every time you felt underestimated, you learned discipline. You're calmer, not because nothing bothers you, because you choose what deserves your energy. You're quieter, not because you have nothing to say, because you no longer need to prove. You're slower to react, not because you don't care, because you understand consequences. That shift surprised everyone, even you. There was a moment recently where you thought, I would have handled this differently a year ago. That realization is powerful. It means you evolved. And evolution under pressure is rare. You didn't grow when things were easy. You grew when things were uncomfortable. You grew when ego wanted control. You grew when emotion wanted attention. You grew when pride wanted validation. And instead of feeding those impulses, you starved them. That's discipline. Discipline isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It isn't impressive to everyone. But it is transformative. There were outcomes that were supposed to humiliate you. Outcomes that were supposed to break your confidence. Outcomes that were supposed to make you desperate. But because you responded with stability, Those outcomes lost power. The situation didn't win. Your growth did. And that's the unexpected part. The test didn't expose weakness. It exposed maturity. You are no longer easy to provoke. You are no longer easy to manipulate. You are no longer easy to destabilize. That doesn't mean you don't feel emotion. It means emotion doesn't control direction. That's leadership. Even if you don't see yourself that way, leadership begins internally. When you can lead your own impulses, you can influence your environment. There are people quietly reassessing you now. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it. They sense you're different, more grounded, more measured, more intentional. And when someone becomes intentional, their future shifts. You didn't defeat a person. You defeated an old habit. You didn't overcome an enemy. You overcame impulse. That victory is deeper than you think, because impulse kept you small. Impulse kept you predictable. Impulse kept you stuck in cycles. Now you respond strategically. Now you choose timing. Now you choose silence. Now you choose direction. That level of control is rare, and rare growth surprises everything that expected you to remain average. This is not the end of testing, but it is the beginning of confidence, not loud confidence, the kind that doesn't panic when things go wrong, the kind that doesn't beg when doors close, the kind that doesn't crumble when misunderstood. You built that slowly, painfully, quietly, and because you built it under pressure, it will not disappear under pressure. There is something else shifting now. Opportunities are responding differently. Conversations feel different. Your presence feels heavier, not intimidating, stable. And stability attracts trust. Trust attracts opportunity. Opportunity expands influence. Influence demands continued discipline. Do not relax now. Stay grounded. Stay intentional. Stay disciplined. Because the real surprise wasn't the test. It was your response. And your response proved you are no longer who you used to be. If this message feels accurate, if you know you handled something differently this time, if you recognize the shift from reactive to intentional, comment, "I respond differently," as confirmation, because this version of you is just getting started. Stay here, because what happened was not just growth, it was a shift in authority. For a long time, your emotions led you. If something upset you, it controlled your mood. If someone disrespected you, it controlled your reaction. If an opportunity delayed, it controlled your confidence. But recently, you took control back, and that changes everything. There was a moment where you felt the trigger. You felt the heat rising. You felt the urge to react. You felt the old pattern trying to activate, and you stopped, not because you were afraid, because you were aware. Awareness is power. The old version of you would have reacted instantly. The new version pauses. And in that pause, you created a different outcome. You may not even realize how much damage you prevented, how many arguments you avoided, how many relationships you protected, how many opportunities you preserved. One controlled response can change years of direction. That's how powerful maturity is. The test wasn't about proving yourself to others. It was about proving something to yourself. That you are no longer controlled by impulse. That you are no longer predictable in weakness. That you are no longer a prisoner to reaction. You broke something invisible, a chain that kept you cycling. You didn't defeat a person. You defeated a pattern. And patterns fight back quietly. There will still be moments when you feel that pull. The pull to defend, the pull to explain, the pull to win, the pull to prove. But now you recognize it. Recognition weakens control. Before, impulse felt automatic. Now it feels optional. That shift alone changes your entire future. You may not feel celebrated, you may not feel acknowledged, but something important happened spiritually and mentally. You moved from reactive living to intentional living. And intentional living changes outcomes long term. There are people who expected you to fail again, not because they hate you, but because they only knew the old version of you. When someone grows, it disrupts other people's expectations. They were prepared for your emotional reaction. They were prepared for your overthinking. They were prepared for your need for validation. They were not prepared for your silence. Silence under pressure is intimidating, not aggressive silence, controlled silence. It communicates confidence. Confidence built through discipline cannot be shaken easily. And now you are stepping into a new layer, the layer where stability becomes your identity. Not motivation, not hype, not temporary improvement. Identity. When discipline becomes identity, you don't need to try so hard. You simply act aligned. There was a time when you needed reminders to stay calm. Now calm feels natural. There was a time when you needed effort to avoid reacting. Now reaction feels unnecessary. That's transformation. It didn't happen overnight. It happened through pain, through reflection, through embarrassment, through lessons, through moments where you wished you had responded differently. You learned and you adjusted. That adjustment compounded. Now you walk into situations differently. You don't rush to speak, you don't rush to respond, you don't rush to chase. You observe. Observation gives you leverage. Leverage creates better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. And better outcomes build confidence. This is how growth stacks quietly. The most powerful thing about you right now is not your talent, it's your restraint. Restraint shows strength. Anyone can react. Few can regulate. And regulation builds trust. Trust builds opportunity. Opportunity builds influence. But influence must be carried wisely. The next phase of your life requires emotional maturity, because what is coming cannot be handled by the old version of you. The old version would sabotage success with insecurity. The old version would self-destruct under pressure. The old version would overthink opportunity into fear. That version is fading. Now, when opportunity approaches, you won't panic, you will assess. When attention increases, you won't chase, you will stabilize. When pressure rises, you won't explode, you will respond. That is leadership energy, not loud leadership, quiet leadership. And quiet leadership lasts longer. You may feel a calm confidence now, a grounded sense of self, not arrogant, just certain. Certain that you can handle pressure. Certain that you don't need to prove. Certain that growth is real. That certainty will carry you through what's next. Because more responsibility is coming. Not chaos. Responsibility, more eyes on you, more trust placed in you, more decisions depending on you, and you are ready. Not because you are perfect, because you are disciplined. There will still be days where emotion rises, days where doubt whispers, days where fatigue tempts you to fall back. But now you know something important. You are capable of choosing differently. That awareness changes everything. You are not stuck in who you used to be. You are not trapped in your past responses. You are not limited to old habits. You proved that. And proving it once means you can prove it again. Stay steady, stay grounded, stay intentional. Because the most surprising thing about your journey was never the pressure. It was your response to it. If this message feels like confirmation, if you recognize the shift from emotional to intentional, if you know you are no longer who you used to be, comment, I stay intentional, not for attention, for alignment, because this level of growth is just the beginning.